Is this the dagger?
Illegal substitution, too many men on the field, Saskatchewan.
Gizmo has a block and the sideline. He has not stepped out. He may go all the way. He needs one block and he'll do it easily.
Promise Mess I wouldn't do this.
McDavid stops up. What a move. Shoots. Scores!
Hey everybody, welcome to The Outsiders, powered by the Macintosh Group at Remax River City. I'm Bryn Griffiths in Kananaskis, and I'll explain that later. Robin Brownlee is at his Southwest Edmonton studio, and look who's joining us today on a Monday morning. It is Jamie Thomas from 680 CJOB in Winnipeg. Does color on the radio broadcasts. Okay, I'm going to be really blunt. Are you ready for it? Here comes the question.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
What the hell is going on there? Like, what has happened? Everybody out here in Alberta are trying to figure out, it's tough enough watching the Flames and the Oilers and trying to get a handle on what's going on. But Winnipeg, I can't begin to even start, so I'll let you go.
Where to begin? I think there's a lot of things that came into this, Brent. I'm sure the COVID issues, look at the Calgary Flames. They had them all at once. And I'm not saying the Jets are alone in this. Everybody had this issue throughout the season, but just they would have two here, two there. And I think right off the beginning part of the season, on their first road trip, Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele got COVID. And this is the early wave of COVID. And Wheeler was sidelined for a bit. And I think when those two aren't at their best, clearly that's going to have some issues for you. And they got up to a real slow start. And now they're kind of rolling here. Connor Hellebuck. We are so used to seeing him steal games for the Winnipeg Jets. And I can honestly say he hasn't stolen a game until the month of March. I think he's stolen like 3 now. Buffalo comes to mind on the road trip. So when he's not at that level that we're so used to seeing him play at, the odd occasional goal gets by him that you're not used to seeing, that becomes an issue for this hockey club in tight hockey and tight games. And I can even point to their record in overtime. It was like 1-6 for the longest time. They weren't very good in shootouts. So that extra point killed them that they didn't get, that they probably would have got the previous 2 years. So there's a laundry list of issues, starting with their two, Wheeler and Scheifele not playing at their best at the beginning part of the year, and Connor Hellebuck not being at the Vezina Trophy candidate levels that we've seen him in years past. That probably is. And then, the reconstructed blue line, I thought they've given up. Still, they didn't give up the chance off the rush that they had been giving up in years past, but the front of the net hasn't really been that hard to get to, I guess is the best place to put it for the opposition. So they haven't defended as well as people expected them to. So that's pretty much those are 4 pretty good reasons why the Jets aren't in a playoff spot at this point.
Well, Jamie, I'm sure fans here can relate. I mean, I'm not putting Wheeler and Scheifele in the same category, but, if Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid are off their game, and the goaltending is off, which it has been. They started off great, as everybody knows, but, Koskinen's a question mark. Smith has been a question mark because of the constantly being hurt and having to come back from injuries. You take those components out or knock them down by 10 or 20% in efficiency, you're going to have what you got in Winnipeg, aren't you?
I think so. And I point to, let's look at the season series with Dallas, a division rival for the Jets. They lost 3 straight games in overtime to the Dallas Stars. Those are important points that you need at any time. And you just think if you have those 3 points, that's a big difference. You're still out of the playoffs, but you're still in the hunt at that point. So the 1-goal games have been killer for them this year. And if you're not getting that save at a certain point in the game, a critical stop, that's going to hurt you in those 1-goal games. So just all these little places they're off in certain spots. And then you look at, Pierre-Luc Dubois had a great year. Kyle Connor, I don't think we need to talk about how great he's been. Yeah. Probably one of the more underrated players in the NHL this year. So you got that going for you with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, been a nice combination. Josh Morris, who's having a fantastic year. I think we can't overrate that. Neil Pionk's been beat up this year. So there's a little thing. Logan Stanley kind of took a step back this year after a great rookie campaign with the Jets. So just little things are off here and there. So in a league that is so competitive and so close to one another, when things are off, it's not necessarily a bad year. It's just not what people expected. And they made like improvements on the blue line, brought in Nate Schmidt, Brendan Dillon. So the expectations were sky high. They got the second round of the playoffs last year. So I think I can understand why people are disappointed and frustrated. And I don't think anybody could be more frustrated than Kevin Cheveldayoff and clearly interim head coach Dave Lowry right now.
Yep.
And you know who else we didn't throw in there? Paul Maurice stepping down in December.
I was just going to get to that.
Yep. Blake Wheeler and him had such a great relationship. It was almost like a father-son relationship in some ways. I think that threw things off. That caught so many people off guard. I just think the players they were reeling from that. And then there was the pause. All these things are coming back. It floods back to you when you start talking about it. The pause threw things off. They didn't play at home. Then they had 2 games in late January with 250 fans in the building. And Blake Wheeler pointed out that that was debilitating. Like, it was so frustrating for them to go on the road in the United States. Buildings are full. Then you come home and you need the fans at that point. You need something to get you going. And you're playing Florida and Vancouver. And let's talk, Florida's as good as they are right now. And Vancouver's a Canadian rival. And you have 250 people in the building. And Paul Maurice called it last year, manufacturing energy all the time. It's difficult to do. And we know in January, you come out of the All-Star break or the Christmas break and you need that extra oomph. You don't have that. I think a lot of that comes in, like the Canadian team struggled without the fans in the building, period. So there's lots of little factors that played in this year. And I remember Michael Dick, who used to be the assistant coach of Lethbridge Hurricanes when I was there in the late 90s, said it's not an excuse, it's a reason. There's a lot of reasons why this went off, just not excuses.
Okay, so once again, out here in Alberta and Western Canada, everybody's looking at the Jets trying to figure out what the hell's going on. What the hell happened with Paul Maurice? It just seemed like he went away so quietly. Was it a personal time out for him? Will we see him back? Like, what do you think is going to happen, and what did happen?
You know what? He said last year, without fans in the building, he actually just said, why did we even bother? And I don't blame him. And we all sat through that division last year. It was great to start, but then you play the Oilers 3 games in a row, and it wasn't as fascinating as we thought it would be. Yeah. You thought rivalries were going to build out of it. The hockey was pretty blah, if you really think about it. Yep. Until the playoffs and the emotions started coming out. There was a lot of nights where you're like, there's nothing going on here. And I think he said that took a lot out of him. And then just this year, he admitted that the boys, I think guys just weren't listening, or, he said they needed another voice. He's a pretty smart guy. You guys know this, right? Like, Paul Maurice is as smart as it gets, as intelligent as there is. And if he's noticing that, I think he was smart enough to step back and allow somebody else to come in and see if he could get the same message across, but just with a different voice.
Jamie, when we used to go into Carolina and and when you're on the road, you don't get enough of this. Sometimes it's nice to just sit down and talk hockey away from the scrum, away from the lights and the notepads. Jim Matheson and I would always seek out Paul Maurice if he was, and you know what? When the Oilers got to town, if there was a skate optional or otherwise, Paul would always find a reason to be in the building if the team was in town. Standing in the tunnel, watching. You'd go into, hey, guys, he'd come over and have a coffee. He's one of the guys I most enjoyed talking about the game with over the years. He loves the game, and obviously the game loves him. He's had some success. Where do you have to get to walk away like he did? Did he ever share how difficult that was for him? Because it's okay to say, maybe they're not hearing me anymore and it's time to step away. But for a guy like him, there's got to be a whole lot of thought that goes into that before you actually do it.
Yeah, I truly believe like just this way this year went was just enough. Like, he's given everything to the city. And that's the one thing, like, he stayed in Winnipeg afterwards. I'm not sure if he's gone anywhere now, but because we haven't heard from him for quite a bit. But I always remember how much he loved this city, right? He just would speak about it. He wanted players on his team that wanted to be in Winnipeg, not just to be a Jet, but they wanted to be in the city of Winnipeg and appreciated that. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a whole, for people, like people understand that coaches, the amount of time they give up in their lives, the amount of hours they spend in their office watching videos. And we give up a lot of time covering the sport, but not even close to what coaches do. They're there before the players are. They wear losses, they wear the win, just as much as the players do, if not a little bit more. I just think maybe a little bit, he's probably tired. It was a draining couple of years, and especially through the pandemic, it was a lot on everybody. And, they joke that it was the 5-star prison in Toronto, at the Ritz in Toronto last year, because they couldn't leave, right? They couldn't leave the building. They, to all the hotel's credits in the NHL, they did their best through this, but just probably sitting in a four-wall room all the time and just watching video and not being able to do what we appreciate about this, guys, is I get to talk to you guys when I come to Edmonton, right? We get to see each other, talk about things, how our families and everything. Not being able to do that, and for such a social person like Paul Maurice, must have worn on him. And the fact the team wasn't where they should be all the time was probably wearing on him as well. And we all look at this team as it should be better. And I think it took a lot for him to step away. And Dave Lowry said, I didn't come here to coach the Winnipeg Jets. I came here to coach with Paul Maurice. I think that says everything you need to know about that and how difficult it was for Dave Lowry to take over. And Dave has told us, I don't talk like Paul Maurice. I don't dress like Paul Maurice. So we got spoiled with him here. You could ask him one question, and writers know this better than anybody. He could fill an entire a notebook in about 5 minutes for everybody. So that's the part we miss about him. And we could go to broadcast meetings, and Kevin Sawyer works for TSN, said, man, he does all your work for you pretty much. Like, you just talk to him and he would tell you all the little things that are going on that you could address during a broadcast. So we got spoiled. But full credit to Dave Lowry trying to keep this together, because it has not been easy.
Dave Lowry is a great guy. I worked with him in Calgary doing the Flames broadcast. I loved him. He was very honest. Honest as the day is long. Is he going to survive? Is he going to survive this? It seems unfortunate, but somebody's going to end up paying the price here. I don't know what Chevy's status is going to be as well, because let's take a look at the playoffs last year. They got by the Edmonton Oilers in a sweep that could have gone either way. If one goalie was 100%. Just a little bit, I thought the goalies were so close, but Connor Hellebuck was just a little bit better, and they got a little better bottom six scoring out of the Jets, and the Oilers got none, so it was pretty easy to check them. But that series could have flipped the other way, and it might have made this season a little easier of a setup, but that set the bar really high for this year. But now you've gone through it, Jamie. There's going to have to be a move or two. Is that what you're hearing there at all, or are we just hearing that out here?
Here's what I think. When you come through a year like the Canadian teams have through a pandemic, you didn't have a lot of revenue, you've lost a lot of money. Are you really in a place where you want to pay people not to work? And I think somehow knowing Mark Chipman a little bit and his loyalty and understanding what's going on here, is another coach or another coaching staff really going to change things that much? You have the same group, it's the same players. I just don't know if that's really going to help things here. Kevin Cheveldayoff did everything that the team, that was required. He fixed the blue line. That's what everybody was saying they had to do. So he did that. You've lost, Cole Perfetti was supposed to be up here this year. You lost him for the rest of the year. There's just lots of little things that have happened that are out of their control. The coaching staff can't fix the fact the power play is not going well. The coaching staff can't fix that, last 3 games you've given up 3 shorthanded goals. You can't fix Mark Scheifele not having a consistent year. You can't fix Connor Hellebuck to not being himself. So as much as everybody wants, and this is working with a team, it changes your perspective a lot of things on how things work. You kind of see little things like, I remember reacting to everything. And when you start traveling with a team, you're like, holy cow, these guys they lost a pretty bad game, but you see how they park it and move on to the next one. Yeah. I just think everybody has to have a level head here and realize that there's a lot of things that people didn't expect to happen, and yelling and firing the coaches and ripping this thing apart is not really the right thing to do because there's a lot of good pieces here. I haven't mentioned Nikolai Ehlers yet. There's just Dylan DeMello is a solid top 4 defenseman as there is right now. Brennan Dillon, and there's Logan Stanley had an off year, but he's starting to get a little bit more consistent. Like Nate Schmidt, like, are you kidding me? He's your 3rd defense pairing. Like, he's just a good first pass defenseman. There's just too many pieces. Adam Lowers is as good 3rd line center as there is in the NHL right now. So I just don't know about blowing things up all the time. Everyone thinks Billy Hainela should be playing more. That's the thing. Every city thinks there's a 1st-round draft pick should be playing all the time. Billy Hainela is not strong enough yet to defend the front of the net. He's a great offense. It reminds me of Marc-Andre Bergeron in Edmonton.
Oh, yeah.
He was a power play specialist. That's what Billy Hainela is right now. He's fantastic when it's 5-on-4, but when it gets tough in front of the net, he's just not strong enough yet to do that. He's not strong enough to fight off defender and get the puck in the corner on the defensive end. That's not his fault. He's going to grow he's going to get stronger as time goes along, but it's just not yet. So all this fascination with Billy Hainela being up here, and that's why the Jets are losing. Maybe we should step back and be a little bit more realistic here.
Now, Jamie, the important thing through everything you said is this.
Yeah.
Are the people calling the shots smart enough? And this isn't a punchline. Smart enough to think along the lines of what you just talked about. We here in Edmonton have seen it firsthand for a long time. Oh, yeah. How many coaches would you like to have? How many people do you want to change out because you don't have the success right away? So we'll go from Rennie and Quinn and on and on and on and on. And you'll have a kid who's been here 7 years and he's had 6 coaches. And I don't know how, people don't forget how to coach and they don't forget how to play hockey, even when you have a tough season. You've got good hockey players there. You got good hockey people there. At the same time, you got the results-driven business hanging over your head. How do you balance the two without going, hey, it's okay, and having fans still want to come to the building and, still make the tweaks that you need to make? I'm keeping Connor Hellebuyck all day long. I don't need a new goalie if I've got Connor Hellebuyck. Did Scheifele forget how to play hockey? So did I miss that somewhere? This is a good group.
Yeah, it's like Mark Scheifele is a possibility at 100 points. If you get rid of him, he's going to score 100 points somewhere else, right? Yeah. Blake Wheeler is still a point per game guy. He hurt his knee in December and like that. He was out for a long period of time. Yeah. So, and you lost Nikolai Ehlers for 19 games. So there's just all these little things that's not going to happen. You hope the following year. I just don't believe that the ownership group, management is in the position where they're going to panic because of what they've built here. You're trying to sell to guys that want to come play in Winnipeg. We're loyal. We're not going to get rid of you when things are tough. I also haven't said enough about Jamie Compon, as passionate as it gets. Like when he, was some personal issues this year, family issues. He was on, Paul Murray said he's phoning him at 4:00 in the morning, talking about the power play. As passionate as it gets. Charlie Huddy is as great as it gets. I mean, you're not going to find a better defensive coach around than Charlie Huddy. I'm sorry. I've just seen there's too much respect for Charlie Huddy on the guys that play on the blue line in the dressing room. I just don't believe that they're short a coach right now. You haven't filled in Dave Lowry's position right now. So I think that this coaching staff is going to be here. New coaching staffs don't sell tickets. Success does. So something's going to happen in the offseason that's going to tweak the interest of the fans. And I always find, remember Kevin Lowe when he said there's two different types of fans, the one that buy tickets, the one, I can't remember what the other quote was.
Tier 1 and tier 2. He is the tier.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was probably tone deaf a little bit, but it's right. There's the people that are buying tickets are usually, to me, the ones that kind of have an idea what's going on every night a little bit more than the fan that reacts out of emotion. I've been a person reacting out of emotion. You're like, fire him, get rid of the power play, put this guy here. It's just not that simple. So I don't know if changing the coaching staff is going to change things around here. I just think it's the players that have to execute on the ice. They have a pretty good freaking team, guys. I'm sorry. It's just, it just didn't work out for him. And look at the Central Division. There's five teams right now. We'll just leave the Jets, and there's 6 teams that are in that position that, they're either in the playoffs or fighting for a playoff spot. It's a damn good division. And that plays a big role into what happened here as well.
I just, on the Tier 1 and Tier 2 fans thing, I got to tell you, I did talk to the president of another hockey club in Canada who said, I can't believe Kevin said it, but he's absolutely true. There are 2 tiers of fans, because there are some that will spend their money on tickets, and that's direct money in, or jerseys. And then there's other people who will watch it in the bar and will support local businesses in a different manner. But they're just as important, but their money is going in different directions. So I still, like I said, I was one of those guys as well. I couldn't believe that Kevin said it, but he did. He said a few things around here lately toward the end that were rather blunt and honest, but it's come back to haunt him a little bit. Okay, the other thing we got to talk about is contract situations this coming summer, because there's what's going to happen there. Just can you rattle off a couple of the biggies?
Well, Paul Stastny, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. He'll likely finish with 20 goals. Like that's quite a 20-goal season that you're going to have. And I haven't talked about him yet. The guy that wins 55% of his faceoffs, but has been pushed to the wing a little bit because he's on the back end of his career. That's a solid guy in your dressing room. I don't know if he's back next year. That's a tough one. You took care of Andrew Kopp. Now, if you're a Winnipeg Jet fan, you're hoping the Rangers go to the Eastern Conference Finals so you can get a first-round pick, and then you've got 2 first-round picks out of that. So that's really the only one that stands out a little bit. You have to, Mason Appleton's restricted free agent. You'll figure that out. There's another guy I haven't even talked about yet. That's a straight line guy that goes hard to the net all the time.
Yeah,
great penalty killers. So he wants to be a Winnipeg Jet. So you want those guys, and he didn't want to leave. You didn't have a choice with Seattle. The Jets have tried to get him a couple of times back from the Kraken earlier this year. He'll likely be back next year. Evgeny Svechnikov is another guy that has been an up and down the lineup player that has been fantastic this year. Was hurt all the time with the Detroit Red Wings as a first round pick, just ran out of chances there, but he's been good. So there's another guy. But now you got to think Dylan Sandberg, a guy that's been fantastic in the American Hockey League. You gotta make space for him. Is Billy Hanel up here next year? Is that so there might be some movement on the back end. It's hard to say. But you've got like 6 NHL defensemen there right now. There's going to be some tough decisions that have to be made, because you're going to have to start pushing these guys up from the Moose into the NHL. You can't keep them down. And then Cole Perfetti will be an NHLer next year. So that's going to cause some movement in the front end too. So the only real contract that stands out there is Paul Stastny. Because of what they have up front, I don't know if he's back next year. That's going to be the only other one that's the guy that I don't think will be back in the Jets uniform next season.
Jamie, if you had to make an educated guess, who's the coach of this hockey club next year?
I'm going to say Dave Lowry. I just think he becomes the full-time. The interim tag gets taken off. There's just been so many circumstances that have been out of his control that he hasn't been, and then you're gonna have a full training camp to get your put on this hockey club. So if somebody doesn't like him or the player doesn't like him, does everybody in a dressing room like the head coach? Mike Keenan, I'm hearing lots of nightmare stories about him through the years. Won. So a lot of people didn't like him, and they still figured out a way. Mac T wasn't always popular all the time with the players. That's just the way things work. You're not always loved by your players, but so I think it's Dave Lowry next season, and they just add another assistant coach to fill in his spot.
Now with Lowry, Jamie, have you noticed any change from being on the coaching staff to being the guy? Because some people are more comfortable being the right-hand guy or the left-hand guy, but not the decision guy. I remember for years and years around the league, different situation. We're talking a manager. You'd run into Steve Tambellini, and he sounded like just an absolute sage of hockey. It didn't go well for Steve Tambellini here.
No.
When he was the general manager instead of an assistant GM, it was like a deer in the headlights, and it's like he forgot everything he knew. Is Lowry as comfortable doing what he's doing now as being one of the associates or assistants?
Yeah, I think what Bryn pointed out, just a guy that's blunt and gets his message across, right? I think a guy that is more than happy to tell you how he feels instead of being cryptic or not telling you how he feels. I think it's going to be pretty effective with this group next year. One thing he kind of said to us that stood out to me, because someone asked him, traditionally when things are going well, people ask, is this a fragile team? He goes, there's too many, this is too old of a team to be fragile. There's too many veteran guys in this group to be fragile. So I just think he's played 1,000 games. He's been an assistant coach for a long time. He's had success at the Western Hockey League level. I just think Dave Lowry has what it takes. He's not going to pull any punches. He's not worried about what you think of him. He's the right guy to lead this hockey club, in my opinion.
He coaches the way he played. He was a very honest player, and he worked his ass off, and I see him doing the same thing as a coach. The other thing, too, I remember, on occasion, he would step into the hot stove at the Saddle Dome, and he would take questions, and there were a couple of questions from me. I do tend to pull a few from left field, and he would answer them beautifully. And then the next day, he'd pull me aside and goes, I want to address that question that I couldn't do last night to kind of maybe show you a little different angle on that. And I love that. He was basically coaching me, is what he was doing.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of time for Dave Lowry. I think he's fantastic. You've been around too long when we're talking about a Stastny who is probably not going to be back in Winnipeg, and yet we watched his dad play. So,
I remember when the Stastnys came over from Czechoslovakia.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, I remember his dad when he was a rookie in the National Hockey League. We've been around a long time. I have his hockey cards. That's
pretty crazy.
I'm old.
We all
and
are.
your kids let you know how old you are all the time too.
I hear that all the time. Hey, let's talk about some other stuff around the National Hockey League. We've had this discussion here in the last couple of weeks, the Hart Trophy, and I've been on a few other podcasts lately. I think this year there's about 10 guys that could win this thing, because there are 10 guys easily. Robin is shaking it off already. We're going right down that same rabbit hole. He's got a guy he likes. There's a guy that I think has had a great season, has done a great job with his team. What about Jamie Thomas? Who do you like?
I have a lot of respect for what Roman Josi has done this year. But hands down, I don't even care anymore, because Connor McDavid, flat out, is the MVP, is the Hart Trophy winner. Without him, there is nothing. I am sorry. I've seen too many games with him where you're scared when he comes on the ice. If you're a opposing broadcaster, if you're a fan, you're like, oh, my mom gets mad when I talk about this. She's like, why doesn't anybody else play? How come they don't play the fourth line? Because Connor McDavid can change the game in 2 seconds. And Nathan McKinnon's had a great year. Austin Matthews has had a great year. But flat out, Connor McDavid, they should just put his name on the trophy every year, because he is what the Hart Trophy is, most valuable to his team.
Okay.
Period.
Now, we all know the vote happens right at the conclusion of the season. They're going to make the postseason. They just need 3 more wins out of their last 10 games to get there. If they didn't make the postseason, would that change the way you'd view it?
We know they're going to make it. So it would change things a little bit. Austin Matthews is great, but I've seen when the Jets have played the Leafs this year twice, 5-on-5, they've shut them down. The Jets have had a horrible time shutting down Connor McDavid at 5-on-5. There is nobody like him in the NHL. We saw him 100 times last year because of the Scotia North Division. He is terrifying. If you're an opposing team, you have to adjust everything to what they did. The Jets had to completely change their structure to beat the Edmonton Oilers in that first round playoff series. It took everything out of them. That's what happened to them when they played Montreal. They were out of gas because of 4 games of facing Connor McDavid night after night. It is draining mentally and physically to contain him. Period.
Jamie, I've got to say this, and you have to forgive me if I've never said it to you before.
Yeah.
Your ability to analyze and your perception of the game is almost unmatched, if you ask me.
I'm sensing something going on here.
It's coming.
The McDavid take. This is for Bryn's enjoyment. The McDavid take is so bang on. All of us have been around a while.
We're spoiled.
I have never seen. I'll put it this way, and I know the Stanley Cups come into it, and longevity will come into it. I have never seen a better player. Not the greatest player because of accomplishment and titles. I have never seen a better player than Connor McDavid. Not Wayne Gretzky, not Mario Lemieux, not Pavel Bure. There is nobody I can name who is as dynamic, as explosive, as important of a catalyst to his team, because he can take it. If he doesn't like an elbow or the way he's been hit, or the way the game is going, you will see him literally throw the team on his back and say, "Here we go." And you just don't. There are other players who have great moments, but he is a great player.
Okay, so obviously you two guys are on the McDavid camp, and I'm not slagging Connor by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure,
he's got Leon here as well. The guy that I'm liking. Okay, so Austin has got. He's got a pretty good supporting group. Mitch Marner's very solid in Toronto. So I kind of dismiss it a little bit. But the guy that I've been picking is, one, I didn't see the Calgary Flames having this kind of year, and they are completely being led by the little guy. And so if they don't have Johnny Hockey, they're not there. I think he's provided offense like beyond belief. He's taken it to the next level. I just think that there's a lot of guys. Jonathan Huberdeau has been lights out fantastic in Florida. Nathan McKinnon, unbelievable in Colorado, but he's also got a supporting cast. I think the Hart Trophy this year is up for grabs. I just do. I feel that way. Okay, next top. Do you want to add to that? I see that you want to say something.
No,
okay.
I just think I think Bryn and I made our case, so I don't know how to go. But there's other people that see it that way, and I agree with you. I just think we're so spoiled by watching Connor McDavid. It's like, oh, who else is there? What else? Somebody else is having a great year.
It's the new shiny thing.
It's like, exactly. Like, who else can we give it to besides him? Because we can't give it to him again.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There'll be some
asinine.
Of that.
It is. It's asinine, and we all know because that guy in Toronto. We know how that's going to work. We've been around too long. I've lived there. I know exactly how this works. Remember when Jerome McGinley and Jose Theodore were up the Hart Trophy one year? We all know who should have won that.
Yeah.
Now that I've lived in the East and been in the West, we know the Eastern bias. I don't care. I'm not afraid to say it. It's real. It sits there. That's all it is. We're too far out. The games are too late. I live there. The Vancouver games. I'm not staying up for that. That's crazy. I'm seeing it.
Yeah.
It's Connor McDavid flat out. It's just It shouldn't even be a conversation.
Who's the top team in the West and who's the top team in the East in your eyes right now? And once again, it's not easy to pick, but
no, like Colorado is just to me, like Minnesota has moments. They're big, they're physical. They could probably grind you down quite a bit. But Colorado, to me, they're a combination of. They're just terrifying. They just won't stop. And the only thing, like we try to come up with ways to go, oh, they're not good. And I do it too. Yeah. Oh, I'm a little worried about their goaltending. I'm a little worried about this. Oh, they could get banged up in the back end. There's a lot of talent there, but they're not physical. Well, I've seen Cale Makar handle himself just fine. They're dangerous. It's going to take a lot to take them out. And I love what Daryl Sutter said. If you play them, it's a waste of 8 days. So it's tough. So Colorado, to me, hands down in the West. In the East,
I think it's pretty easy right now, actually. I've watched a lot of Eastern games. Yeah,
like Florida, I just don't know. I don't know if you can score the way they do. When it gets tight in the playoffs. Yeah. I'd be terrified of Tampa, guys.
If they make it.
The way they're kind of, I know it's a little, if they're falling off a little bit, but still, to me, Tampa's the best in the East.
They're hanging on to a wild card position. So,
They remind me of the Oilers. The Oilers in the 80s, they would take days off.
Yeah.
It's just, my dad would get mad every November. Oh, they're just playing possum. Every night, the same thing. We all know what's going to happen. It's Tampa, guys. It's Tampa and Colorado. And what a Stanley Cup final that would be.
Okay, let's talk about you. Let's talk about, you've had an interesting year too. How many broadcasters are going to have COVID on the road? Like you had it. Our good friend Bob Stauffer and Cam Moon is another guy. They've all had it. Bob was stuck in Chicago, I think, for 5 to 7 days, and Mooner was stuck in Dallas for about a week. What about you? Everybody seems to be getting it. It's not any fun if you don't, right? You can't be part of the party if you don't get it.
Wasn't there a South Korean doctor who said if you haven't had COVID, you have no friends? Isn't that part of what the?
Yeah. What about you?
So I'm not like, okay. Let's quantify this or clarify this. I'm not making fun of COVID.
No.
When I got COVID, we were in Nashville. I got the call. You got to take a cab back. I was at the Bruins practice facility. I got the text message. You do the walk of shame out of there. You take a cab back, wearing your mask. Get back to the hotel. And all of a sudden I get text messages and DMs on Twitter. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm like, I had the sniffles. And it was almost like a mental thing. As soon as someone tells you I'm COVID, I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. I have the chills.
Yeah.
It was not terrible at all. I had one bad night. I was cold. I had a bad, annoying cough for 3 weeks. I've heard guys in the Jets tell me they played with a lot worse, right? You know, guys played with the flu over the years. So, but I was in Boston. I was at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston. So it's just
for a week,
you know, your only thing you're terrified of is that your wife is going to kill you. Cause you're like, she's back home with my 3 kids.
Yeah.
It's January. The weather, it's like minus 50. It's snowing nonstop. I'm not scared of COVID. I'm scared of what happens when you get back home. After the 5th day and you get outside, I went and got a haircut. Like I walked around Boston for 4 days.
Great
so
city.
it had one terrible snowstorm. I got a little bored walking around the same places because I'm cheap. I don't want to Uber everywhere and go see the scenes. I have 3 kids, so it's not like I can go sightseeing or whatever because I got bills to pay or whatever. But it was not awful. So all I can really say is there are way worse places to be than Boston, Massachusetts with COVID.
And let me point out here that I'm not making fun of COVID, but
we're not.
I've had cancer and I joke and laugh about it. I've had COVID. I laugh and joke about it because that's my response to things. I try to look ahead. I look forward. I see the battle and I want to get through it. I know it's been tough on a lot of people, but I've been watching guys like you and the other guys all kind of scramble, and it's really been difficult, and it's still kind of around in different forms and different variants. But hey, man, you thumbs up for you to have to put up with it in Boston of all cities, which is a great city, at the Ritz-Carlton. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. The only thing that got annoying was just like, you see that, you know, everybody's nice to you because they have to be, because the Jets are a pretty big contract, right? You're bringing in 40 people with you all the time. And like, hello, Mr. Thomas, I got a care package the first day of chips and water. So just,
or,
you know, there's
Mr. Thomas, here is your clam chowder.
Yeah.
Clam chowder. And then just the daily testing, that was about it. And then the disappointment, because you can't, NHL rules at the time, your CT levels have to be bigger than 30. So I got tested and every day was below 30. That was your big disappointing day. That was it. And then you get to watch broadcasts of your team that you see every day in different formats. And then, man, I didn't realize how biased the Pittsburgh Penguins television broadcast was until I watched them play the Jets from a Jet perspective, I guess is the best way to put it. But it works.
That's you know, it's funny you would say that. I noticed this a long time ago, Jamie, and it's unrelated, but it's related in a way when you hear the different broadcasts. I have, for going on 20 years now, laughed out loud, and it came up this week when they did the celebration of Rick Jenneret's career. Now, Rick Jenneret had a terrific career. I don't know anybody in the microphone end of the business that doesn't know the Mayday call.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's... but here's the thing, what you said. Rick Jenneret, the greatest thing he ever managed with, as a broadcaster, if you've ever watched the video of it, is he made the George Larac Rob Ray fight sound like a toe-to-toe slugfest that was just hellfire and brimstone. In that bout, George hit Ray 23 times. Ray threw 2 punches, and it sounded like it was a split decision. It was a beautiful call for a hometown Buffalo guy.
Yeah. Paul Edmonds, and my broadcast partner, says we don't sell content, we sell hope. That's what you do in the broadcast. So that's what I've learned to appreciate after calling games for your team.
You know, there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of fun. In fact, I want to ask you this because I've been in this position in a few situations where you're kind of working for the team, but you're still working for a radio station, and you still have to walk the line a little bit, but you also got to lean a little bit to the home side. Has that been a struggle for you?
When I first started doing it, yes. Actually, when I came from Sportsnet to the Jets on Jets TV and covering the team, my questioning was still, you know what I'm going to say, right? It's still kind of pushed towards what happened there. And then I kind of quickly learned, like I asked Paul Maurice about a penalty call that was missed, and I got poked in the side by PR, said, hey, don't do that because you don't want to get them fired up and fined, which is fine. I get it, right? So after a while, you start to change your line of questioning. I actually kind of enjoy it because I'm not a negative person. I just, it's not fun poking at guys when they're not in a good mood. I don't enjoy it, never have. That's one of the things. Lots of people do enjoy it. That's why they're good at what they do. But I appreciate a lot of things. Jets fans are smart enough to know when you're towing the line. They're not dumb. So sometimes you do have to be honest in certain situations. It's just how you word it, gentlemen. You have to word it a certain way that you're being truthful, but you're not being negative, I guess is the best way to put it.
Are you okay, Robin? Are you frozen up there?
No. I'm again.
He's thinking before he speaks.
Yes, because that's what journalists do, not broadcasters.
I've heard the same thing. Some people don't understand the difference between what you do as an analyst, as a play-by-play guy, as a host, as a beat guy on the newspaper side or on the website side. I mean, I laugh out loud. I mean, a guy we all love, right? I hear fans when they're mad, especially if the Oilers are in the tank. That Gene Principe, I can't stand that Gene Principe.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Gene? It's always softballs. Gene is the host. His gig is not to say, what the hell's wrong with the power play, coach? I think people outside sometimes don't understand that. And really, I guess in the big picture, it doesn't matter. They want to be entertained. But you've walked both sides of that with what you do. Bryn has done the same thing. I have not. So I'm still the stubborn guy who says, what about the power play? But there's lots of roles in there. It's not just media in quote marks, is it?
Yeah.
No, it is not. And you know what? I got a great story about Gene. Well, who doesn't? But I remember we were doing our morning meeting when it was still at Sportsnet, and each bureau has what they're going to do that day. And this around the time Mac T was really in trouble, and the assignment desk wanted Gene to ask Gene, can you ask Mac T about his, how he feels his coaching career, is it coming to an end? And Gene, Captain Positive, but he's pretty much saying, no, I'm not doing it. And I always laugh because I also had a news director when I was in Edmonton asked me, remember around the time the Daniel Snyder thing happened, and they wanted me to ask about Mac T, about how that happened. And I just flat out said, if you want me to be able to go back and direct all plays, I am not going to be that guy to ask that question. And there are some news directors that don't get that. Yeah. And there are some that do. They think that you should be asking those questions, but there's a relationship there that people don't understand. We may not like what the coach is doing, but there's still a relationship with the organization and the company that you work for. It's different in sports than it is in news, flat out, period. And I know people don't like that line. Some people can ask those questions, but it's not coming from the sports guy. I'm sorry.
It's funny you should mention that because I was the sports director at CTV Edmonton, and we would get that question from the newsroom all the time, to which I simply, and of course, so I'm the sports director, and I was blessed because I had Ryan Rashog and Brian Mudrick working alongside me. And when we had questions like that come up, I'd say, do you have a news reporter available today? You send them down to the practice to ask that question, because I can't jeopardize any kind of a relationship I have. So send a newsie down. And that's often what they did.
The news report, that you always happy whenever CBC showed up. God, something's coming. Some bad. Yeah, there's an angle here.
Yeah.
We never see you all year long, but here comes CBC. No offense, CBC. We
No,
appreciate everything you do.
Their newsroom, they got a different agenda than we would have. So, and we all have an agenda. So, hey, before we go too far, I don't know if this is going to play. Hang on a second here. I want to see if I've got this.
To LaFontaine, he gets tripped up, gets it to May, and over the line. He's May going in on goal. He shoots. He scores! Mayday! 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 Red May wins it in overtime.
I don't care. I don't care if the guy's a homer or not. I can get goosebumps when I hear that because that's one of those memorable moments, and that's what. Hey, it's the entertainment business, right, boys?
Go ahead, Robin.
You know what strikes me, guys, and we've got a guy here in Jack Michaels who, when he gets revved up, I love the call of Jack's games, and I sat beside Rod Phillips for a long time on that airplane, and loved the passion in his call. What I love about Rick Jenneret is and I can't even do it because I'm a newspaper guy by trade. He doesn't have the perfect radio guy voice. He sounds like the neighbor next door celebrating the Brad May goal. That's not a broad. That's not a delivery you teach at Nate or Sate. That's Rick Jenneret calling the game the way he calls the game. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, I think another thing people don't realize too is broadcasters aren't journalists; they're entertainers.
Yeah,
that's all. I mean, we went to journalism school. A lot of us broadcasting school, but you are in the entertainment business. You don't want to be boring. You're entertaining people, flat out. That's all. That's what we're there for. And he was one of the best, man. Like there's just the montage that the Sabres had on their Twitter page. It's just his calls, and he talks in every once in a while. But there's a lot of childhood memories in there that you cherish forever. And you're not even a Buffalo Sabre fan; you're just a fan of hockey. And Rick Jenneret is one of the best. Like that, just flat out. It is a hard job. Play-by-play is not. Everyone goes, oh, I could do this. No, you can't. Play-by-play is the hardest job out there. You have to make something. There are some nights where you're watching games and you're like, what the? This is the most boring night of my life. But Paul Edmonds makes it as exciting as possible. You feel like you're there. You feel like you have to be there. It is a skill that not many people have, and that's why there's only 32 of those jobs in the NHL.
I remember my very first play-by-play job was at the University of Alberta at Clare Drake Arena for CJSR Radio, the campus station, and I recognized around 3 minutes in, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this because the skill set of seeing it go in here through the eyes and come out and make some sense in a split second, it's a real skill set. And then to address what you just pointed out, a very good friend of mine, Kurt Keelback, who was a longtime voice of the Winnipeg Jets, and he had the pipes and everything. And when I worked and did color on the Jets broadcast back in 91, the one thing he reminded me of is that every game's got to sound like it's a seventh and deciding game of a Stanley Cup final. And I'm thinking, Sod, come on. Sod Buster, because he's from Saskatchewan. I said, how do you do that? He says, that's the secret. And that's all he said. That's all he ever said to me. So, I mean, there's an art form to it, and everybody thinks they could do play-by-play, and they're very critical of a lot of guys that are doing it, but I have the highest respect level for anybody who's working at the NHL level, even a lot of the new guys. It's just to get there. It takes a lot of work, and then to be able to stay there. When you think of Chris Cuthbert, who's been around forever doing those games, there's a lot of guys who've been doing games for a long, long time, but man, oh man, it's a skill set. Not only a broadcaster, you're right, you're an entertainer. So, Robin.
Yeah, Bryn, you know what? I used to be one of those guys who I thought could do it because I knew the game. And we took some broadcasting while I was as part of journalism school to see if it was an option. We also took photography, but I don't take a great picture either. So
in many ways.
And I thought, good point. I thought that until I ran into somebody that Jamie's very familiar with now, sitting in the press box and riding on the bus and listening to Kelly Moore do his job with the Kamloops Blazers. And I'm thinking, this game is a dog. This game is a dog with fleas, and you got to go. You got the mic, and you got to call it, and it's got to sound good. And I thought, how's he doing this? This is unbelievable. That was my first taste, day after day, night after night, of seeing how tough that gig behind the mic is.
Well, you guys remember Brian Maxwell used to coach the Lethbridge Hurricanes. I did color there.
Brian Maxwell had the deep pipes. Very deep.
Yeah. Terrifying individual too.
Very terrifying.
He told me, he's like, you can't be so hard on these kids. You are a salesperson of the Lethbridge Hurricanes. Changed my whole perspective of how you broadcast games. And he's like, they're kids. Don't forget that.
Don't tell me I'm wrong either. That's how it is.
Yeah, he's the nicest guy, but just terrifying. Huge hands. He's got a photo. I remember in his office in Lethbridge, it was him checking Wayne Gretzky. I'm like, okay, like just
that one
flat
time.
out
That
respect
one time.
For respect. Yeah, that's right. He's got a photo of it too. So,
Jamie, do you like how you look now?
Hey, listen, we're going to let you go. Your season is not done yet, and we appreciate your time. Big hugs to you and your entire family. I miss. When you lived in Edmonton, we lived in the same neighborhood, and frequently I'd be out mowing the lawn because sometimes broadcasters have to do that, and you'd always honk the horn, and I always appreciated that. That was great stuff. But thanks for your time today. This has been great.
Listen, I don't think I have to. I say this all the time. It's always when I come back to Edmonton, and I lived there a long time. Two of my kids were born there. It's something that's like you're home all the time, right? And I have a lot of friends in the business. I learned a lot from you guys over the years. It is not an easy business when you first start, but you guys made it a lot of fun, and I always appreciate that too. So thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Well, it's going to be more than every year. I don't know why we didn't get a hold of you earlier, but I guess we didn't see a fire in December in Winnipeg. So now there's a full-scale 3-alarm blaze going, and I'm sure they'll get it under control. Thanks for your time, man.
I'm gonna miss. I'll say hi to Dave Lauer. I missed my broadcast meeting. I'll tell him I was on with you guys.
That'd be nice. Thanks, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Spring is here. You can tell in Western Canada because you can get snow one day and a crazy melt the next. And the temperatures are all over the place from, plus 18 to -2 for a daytime high. I love it. Just the way it is. You know where it's hot, though, right now? The Edmonton real estate market. Wow. I don't know what I can tell you about 2022, but the Edmonton single-family real estate market broke some records last year, not only for values, but also for units sold. So that tells me, and it should tell you, that if you're thinking of buying or selling a new place, then you better get some professionals involved here, like a Hall of Fame experience kind of guy, like Brent McIntosh. He and his group do fabulous work. They'd be more than happy to talk to you a little bit if you've got some time. Just give them a call at the McIntosh Group at Remax River City at 780-464-0075. Or you can find them online at macintoshgroup.ca. Both buyers and sellers, give them a call and make sure that when you do track them down, that you tell them that the Outsider sent you. Well, Robin, that's it for another episode. You're in Edmonton. I am in snowy Kananaskis. It feels like winter, but I'm in the mountains. It's nice to be away, actually, for a little bit as we are starting to come down the home stretch with the NHL season. Have you been surprised by anything over the last couple of weeks? The Oilers have got it going. The Calgary Flames have got it going. It's starting to look pretty promising for playoffs for both the teams in the province of Alberta.
Wouldn't it be great for the hockey fans in Western Canada, Vancouver, if the Flames and Oilers could finish up hotter than a $3 pistol, as the saying goes, because it's been a long time since the Battle of Alberta. And I know there's this team called the Colorado Avalanche that will play into things before we're done. But you know what? If both teams are going great guns down the stretch and into the playoffs, if they meet and when they meet is sort of secondary. I just look forward to seeing some good hockey in both cities here.
Hey, I got to bring it up because Jamie mentioned it. I asked him what was the best team in the West. And, of course, he's with the Jets, and they're in the Central. So he, of course, mentioned the Colorado Avalanche, but everybody would mention them when you're talking about one of the top teams in the West. He also mentioned Minnesota. And they have been very impressive this season. Didn't mention Calgary at all. And I'm thinking, you know what? There's the feather in the cap of Daryl Sutter, who commented, as Jamie pointed out, about playing the Colorado Avalanche would be a waste of 8 days. He has done a remarkable job of downplaying the Calgary Flames heading into this postseason to the point where nobody's saying, well, those guys are pretty good. He's done a really nice job, and it does a couple of things. It grounds the fan base. It grounds his team. He's already in that postseason mode, I figure.
Well, Daryl is not only a smart man, he's clever. And if you believe he goes into a situation, even though they're not there yet, he's going to take it the day at a time, which is the boring cliche.
Yeah.
But if Daryl Sutter's not going to go into any series thinking it's a waste of 8 days, he's going to want and expect to win. It may not work out that way. That may be the bottom line when it comes to reality. But I tell you what, they're an awful good team. And you know what? For the razzing I give you indirectly about it, Johnny Gaudreau is having a hell of a year.
Yeah.
And he is a dynamic enough player that if he's on and he's just going as good as he can go, he's a game breaker and a difference maker. And I'm still not sure he's to the level of the guy we've got here, but the reality is it's not a contest. So what if he's not Connor McDavid? He's good enough to win you games in a playoff series, and I won't be surprised. Yeah, everybody, Denver, and I'm not writing them off. I haven't seen them as much as I would like. We're going to see them a bit against the Oilers here. Calgary's really good, man. They're really good.
Okay, so we've seen what Daryl Sutter's done. Let's take a look at two other teams. Bruce Boudreau in Vancouver. They're it's not looking great for the Canucks, but we still have a few weeks to go. Bruce Boudreau, would you hire him back?
You know what? He's such a positive guy.
Yeah.
You know what? I would. Some coaches tend to get tagged with that short-term label.
Yes.
You know,
the shelf life thing.
Ken Hitchcock at this point in his career.
Yeah.
Boudreau, that sort of like they come in and they just kick ass and take names and either shape up or you ship out. Boudreau is not as raw and as black and white as that. He's a good coach, but I don't know that he's a 5 years in one place guy, but I sure ask him if he wants to come back for a couple of years and see how it goes. Yeah.
And Jay Woodcroft.
Oh, easy call. You know what? This team, and I'm well aware of the analytics guys that favorite small sample size saying, and 20-something games is still a relatively small sample size. But this team looks like they're, more than anything, it looks like they're playing for each other. There's warts here and there's flaws here that we can pick out.
Yes.
But you see Mike Smith and Connor McDavid celebrating.
Yeah.
You see them coming over and face washing Jesse Puljujarvi when he has makes a good play, it's Zach Hyman. I mean, what an addition. And let's say it on the ice, and we can only assume in the room because we haven't had so-and-so won't be dressing for the next foreseeable future. Evander Kane has come and delivered as people would expect he would on the ice. And this team, there's always more joy and more celebration and more happiness when you're winning. The high fives come easier, obviously. But if you read between those lines, I'm seeing a team that cares about each other right now. And that will take you longer than you might go if you don't care that way.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the coach. I think he's done a remarkable job. A lot of the younger guys, especially the bottom six forwards, who I think have started to pick it up a little bit. And I blamed those guys last season in the playoffs because I didn't think they were good enough. They didn't take enough pressure off the top guys. But you've got a lot of those bottom six guys right now who've probably played for Jay and played very well for him in Bakersfield. And now he's here, and he trusts those guys, and they can feel it. I think Boudreau, I see Boudreau hanging around. Daryl Sutter, obviously, is hanging around, and I think Woodcroft would be a good hire, and I guess we'd like to see Dave Lowry. So we've covered off all the Western teams. Okay, I got to get going. I'm not here skiing, by the way. I'm here at an event. It's called Beck's. If you want to look it up, it's Beck's Conference. It's a leadership type thing, and I'm here doing some podcast work, and it's been great to be part of the Road 55 team here in Kananaskis, and I'm glad we've been able to get this one put out there.
I thought Beck's was a beer thing.
Not in this particular case. Well, there have been beers. It's just this is not specifically a beer event, but beer is part of it. Let me just put it to you that way. Hey, check us out on Twitter. The handle's really simple. It's Outsiders2020. Also, make sure you tell your friends to subscribe to our RSS feed on any of your favorite ear candy sites. You know what they are. Apple, Google, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Deezer. There's a whole pile of them. Everybody knows. If you're listening to us now, then obviously you got us. So just subscribe or follow us, and that's our RSS feed. And we're also on YouTube if you want to hear us, and that's your preferable choice. Robin is recording from his Lucky Sam studio in Southwest Edmonton. I usually broadcast from the Road 55 studio in downtown Edmonton, but it's been nice to be up in the mountains for this little break. Your support greatly appreciated, and that's been fantastic. Also, once again, a huge thanks to Brent McIntosh and his group at the McIntosh Group at Remax River City for supporting us over the 102 episodes of this that we've done. And also, one other thing, if you're on Twitter, keep retweeting the fact that we're out here, because that's what keeps our audience growing, and we love it. Robin, I got to get out of here. There's beers waiting for me out there on the patio, on the snowy patio here at Kananaskis. So we'll talk to you next week. Oh, did you want to say something? You want to take another shot?
No, just don't let those beers get warm. Off you go, man.
All right, see you later. Talk to you next week.
Fun storming the castle.
Road 55.